SAT is a Rome-based architecture, urbanism, and design studio led by Onorato Di Mano and Andrea Tanci, and they practice creative processes to imagine future scenarios. The studio is known for its non generic architecture that is able to relate to the local context and culture through the use of materials, environmental sustainability, and new technologies. We will be conversing about creating future oriented spaces with Andrea Tanchi. So, thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you to you for inviting us to participate in this interesting podcast. It's a real pleasure to share our work and our vision of architecture with you.
No, it's our pleasure. So, first, can you tell us about your studio?
Yeah, well, the office is based in Rome and London. The studio is led by me, Andrea Tanci and Onorato Di Mano, as you already said. We are working together from the time of university, where we met and we discovered affinity in the way of seeing and thinking about architecture. The office works on several projects on a different scale, from interior design and exhibition design to buildings and urban planning. In 2015, after different working experiences in architectural offices in Italy and abroad, we decided to participate in the international design competition for the construction of the Bologna Show Memorial. We won the competition with a very surprising emotion because it was our first test, basically, our first professional comparison as architects. It was an unexpected result for us to be ranked first out of 284 proposals from around the world, and to be selected by a jury chaired by Peter Eisenman. The Bologna Show Memorial is a project that we are very fond of. In some way has led to the birth of the studio and also determined some guidelines for our design philosophy. Describing a bit the project, the Bologna Show Memorial is grafted onto an existing square, which is located above the new Bologna high-speed train station. It appears as a sculptural and massive object of its 10 meters in height and width. Externally, it looks like a full and compact volume, while on the inside it is emptied. The monument is a simple structure made of cortin steel interlocked plates forming a grid. The grid, in an obsessive repetition, recalls the geometry of the beds of the concentration camp dorms. We choose to design an architectural object that evoked the memory of the tragedy of the Holocaust in a non-didactic way. Basically, crossing the passage between the two steel walls, the visitor finds himself immersed in an intimate and personal reflection of the theme of Holocaust. Basically, we believe that simplicity is the key theme of the entire creative process, from the abstract idea to the design solution as a response of the complexity of the functional program. And I think that Bologna Show Memorial is a good example of our approach to the project.
Awesome. So, though I'm sure that's like a reflection of your approach and view towards architecture, but how would you describe your design philosophy?
Well, we believe in essential architecture in which the proportions, the measure of the space, the careful use of materials and natural light play a fundamental role. The synthesis is the common thread that links the methodological approach to the various projects in order to obtain an architecture that is the result of subtraction operation in order to remove superfluous elements. Each project pays attention to the context because we believe in architecture able to reflect the identity of a specific community and its own territory. We are professor at IED, European Institute of Design. The studio combines the design activity with research and teaching. These activities are transversal and interconnected in order to create a continuous exchange between research and professional activity. Through research projects, we always find the opportunity for new collaboration that enrich our background and contribute to developing the research topics. Talking about some research projects, there are 3 works that are evolved in different steps through conferences and exhibitions. The first was a new primitive in 2018. It was a project developed for the Future Architecture platform, in which we were called to question future architecture. We imagined a future scenario in which nature will be the new architecture, where a short circuit will lead to an inversion of roles between nature and architecture. In the same year, we continued to study this vision, and we designed a conceptual project for the Living with Water exhibition at MAO, that is a museum of architecture and design of Ljubljana. The project called Floating Life. This project involves the transformation of the existing dried out wetlands into an active system of livable and navigable basins, thanks to an innovative urban development. The Floating Life project basically does not presume to impose itself as a traditional urban project, but wants to start a dialogue for activating ideas and reflections. Indeed, it does not to try to manipulate nature. In 2019, we involved Miro Naduro, a video artist, to present at the Pisa Biennale of Architecture, a video called The Cyclical Time of Water, a video that leads us to reflect on the climate change, one of the most discussed and significant themes of the last decades.
Mm-hmm. So when we talk about cultural influences or references, how would you describe contemporary architecture and urbanism right now in Italy?
Well, in Italy, Italian architecture has represented for centuries a universal reference model, but today it's not experiencing a particular happy period. Quality architecture has become a rare exception, while in the most cases, new buildings are part of the city are built following only economic interests that don't pay attention to the architectural aspects of the quality of the space. We try to express our vision for a city in a master plan for Tabi, a small city close to Stockholm in Sweden. The name of the project is Living Proximities. That is a project award as a runner-up at European 15. Living Proximities proposes an urban model on a human scale where the distinct and separated elements within the territory are connected and rethought in a single macrosystem. Envisioning a city in which contemporary living, productivity, and wilderness coexist together, offering a stimulating variety of services and experiences, both for residential and visitors. A city in which relationships are more important than the single elements, and where the line between production, labor, and inhabit is blurred. Living Proximities basically envision a livable and productive place where everything is at hand.
Mm. So with everything that you mentioned before, looks like there are so many elements that we need to take into account for when we build for the future or make something that's still far ahead. How do you predict and filter what's relevant, and in what ways architecture and technology should progressively adapt to it?
Technology is assuming an increasingly important role in human life and in the future. We will probably live in virtual realities such as the metaverse, but we will not stop meeting each other in the real space. We believe that architecture is linked to physical matter and the experience of physical space. So technology will continue to be a super tool, not the aim of the project. For the Serpentine Gallery of London in 2019, we presented a project in a competition called Serpentine Augmented Architecture. The proposal aimed to encourage the use of technology as a tool for socializing and sharing. The experience becomes an instrument to reinvent public space and invites us to experience it together, imagining its new use supported by augmented reality. Each visitor is associated with a color through a technological device, such as a smartphone. They participate in the construction of virtual space based on their intuition. The experience is based on the sharing of ideas in order to build useful data for the creation of real future environment that is open and participatory.
That's interesting. So, why and in what ways does the relationship between natural and artificial environments need to be enhanced, do you think?
Well, climate change and the economic crisis suggest a change of direction in the way of conceiving our building and cities in favor of a more respectful attitude towards the natural environment. In Italy, we have examples of villages perfectly integrated with the natural landscape because they were built starting from the needs of the inhabitants on a human scale using local natural materials. So we believe this could be an interesting approach to repropose, to imagine the cities of the future.
So, you would also incorporate existing local context or take inspiration from the past?
Yeah, yeah, because capitalism and globalization have produced universal models of life that have radically changed our way of living and therefore the way of conceiving cities and buildings. We have produced global scale models that pay no attention to valuable local differences. We believe that architecture should go back to being a more artisanal process as a product of a local community reflecting its values. An interesting direction could be to rediscover traditional construction techniques and materials adapted to the needs of contemporary life and supported by innovative technology.
So, wait, do you have an example of completed or ongoing projects that showcase this approach?
At the moment, one of the main projects that we are working on is a complex school in L'Aquila, a small city in central Italy, surrounded by mountains and beautiful natural context. The design of the new school complex is inspired by the frame structure for the children's climbing game. The metaphor of the game wants to transmit values of freedom and social aggregation as a fundamental value of dynamic and innovative teaching. The project includes a kindergarten, a primary and secondary school, a gym, and a multifunctional building. It's conceived as a civic center that integrates a school activity into one large number of services open to the community, in which students, parents, and citizens have a chance to become active protagonists. The aim is to create a space with complementary activities in a unique school complex. The project proposes a measured intervention that confronts the landscape through simple geometries, attention to the proportion, and the use of natural materials. The architectural system presents a dynamic structure of independent volumes in space that guarantee a continuous relationship between inside and outside, between educational space and open course on the natural landscape. The system presents a dynamic conformation of the plan that allows the space to freely create public or private areas and the best relation between both internal and external spaces and teaching areas and open courtyard. The chessboard spatial design allows defining a system of open cores which limits areas for common use, like squares, public garden, and semi-public spaces. Even the interior space of the individual buildings are equipped with a series of common areas like the atrium agora, the staircases, and the flexible in-between spaces. The interior are designed as a stimulating landscape in which every student develops his autonomy and curiosity. All environments, formal and informal, enable an active involvement of the student, leaving space for creativity of the individual who freely choose how to appropriate himself spaces. In this sense, many areas of the school complex are mutable. They adapt to the needs through modular furniture, movable walls, curtain, and free spaces.
It's very nice. Yeah, I think more than anything, we really appreciate architecture that is able to instill positive change or positive behavior. So yeah, that's really nice. So lastly, what is the role of an architect to you?
We believe that the architect has a fundamental role within our society because he is the one who imagines the spaces in which people will live. So we are convinced that a well-designed environment can improve the quality of life of those who will live it. We often find ourselves being point of reference for the client. We establish close relationship that lead us to give advice that goes beyond those strictly related to design. It's nice to be able to give vision that can improve people's lives in a certain sense, helping to synthesize the customer towards the quality of spaces and atmospheres that can enrich their lifestyles.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think it's really important that in this day and age that we build for the future, with in mind taking into account, you know, all these many aspects like environmental, social, and cultural topics. And yeah, even better if our design can initiate positive movement towards better future. That's like, yeah, that's the best of both worlds. So yeah, thank you so much again, and hope to connect with you again soon.